Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and what a great, I say, a reminder of how far this technology has grown and sort of where me and Mark have gone. And Mark's kindly come along and he's now doing his follow-up interview to discuss what carbon reduction initiative are and where they're leading. And if you don't know, me and Mark have gone back, a good few years, and we discussed the first phase of this video interview about carbon reduction initiative, what they're doing, and they aim to be the first carbon neutral blockchain out there to obviously help incentives and bring more greener technology to this space. And one of the things I like doing is I like interviewing credible people who really want to make a change in this space. And Mark's got a lot to say about carbon reduction initiative since we last spoke, and obviously tell us what is in store. None of this is financial advice. You know the drill. It's not investment advice. This is just purely an educational video interview to tell you all about the project. And this is something I kind of stand for, which is just education and telling people about this space. So, Mark, it's great to have you.
Great to be here again, Naz.
Great. So, we went back, I think it was last year in December 2021, and we discussed all about the basics of the project, Carbon Reduction Initiative, and what you're
Yeah.
up to. And now, over the last few months, I've just looked at your roadmap, and there seems to be a lot going on. But going back, can you just sort of drill in to my audience about where you're going, and just tell us a little bit about your project before we go into the questions?
Yeah, well, just to kind of recap where we've come from, um, our goal was to create the world's first carbon credit generating blockchain. And that was the initial thing on our roadmap. And
Yeah,
we were going to do that um, by creating what's called a carbon credit methodology.
right.
Um, so there's two types of carbon markets. There's kind of carbon markets for heavily polluting industries, and then there's the voluntary carbon markets. We're on the voluntary carbon market side. So if someone, an individual or a company, wishes to offset their carbon footprint, they can go and buy carbon credits. Um, those carbon credits are generated by individual projects all around the world.
Yeah.
Um, and then they're produced according to a specific methodology, certified by a standards body to ensure the quality. So
Amazing.
the biggest of these kind of standards bodies is called Verra, and we were working with Verra to create our carbon credit methodology. Um, to be honest, it's been a slightly frustrating period for us. Verra are trying to scale themselves.
Right.
They've gone from about 40 people to added another 100 people or something. So as an organization, they're growing very fast. The people who we'd initially done our work with have
Mhm.
left the organization. So we had new people, a new process kind of imposed on us in the middle of this. Um,
Right. So a lot's
and
happened, it seems, since we last
oh
spoke.
yeah, yeah,
Right.
yeah. Uh, so because of that, we had to go back and rewrite all our work, and
Okay.
then there was a review of that, and then we had to go back and rewrite all our work again. Um,
Oh,
so the upshot is we're still in that review process. But
okay.
if I just kind of zoom out and look more
Yeah.
widely at where we are now, um, obviously in the kind of Web3 carbon credit space, there's been a lot of activity in the intervening period. Um, so there's been kind of the Climber and Toucan ecosystem. Do you know Climber and Toucan?
No,
Um,
you fill that
they,
down.
they, they were a first attempt to try and tokenize carbon credits.
Right.
So they had a scheme whereby people would buy carbon credits and retire them on the Vera blockchain, not
Okay.
on the Vera um, registry, they call it. It's not a blockchain. It's kind of a database, but it serves their purpose as a registry of record of who owns the
Right.
carbon credits. So they'd retire them there, and they'd kind of move them into Toucan's ecosystem. Um, so then they'd
Then
have
they
kind of tokenized carbon credits. Um,
Right.
Unfortunately, in June 20, 2022, Vera shut that down. Um,
Right.
but for the those months it was working. It was very popular. It
Right.
brought a lot of new people to the space. Um, but that's the problem with most of the current tokenization schemes. They are against the rules of Vera. So Vera will shut you down once they
Right.
become aware of you. Um,
Right.
Also, in other news, there's a new initiative called Flow Carbon,
Right.
um, and they raised 75 million
Right.
from Andreessen Horowitz um, on
So there's a
the
lot
back.
going on, it seems, isn't there?
Yeah, lots
I
going
mean,
on.
we can be here, but just to sort of drill it down to my audience, where is just from an educational point of view, and just so that
Yeah,
this is an educational interview, so this is just
yeah.
purely discussing what you guys are doing. But where, how do you drill it to our audience? Where does carbon reduction initiative stand today?
So we want to accelerate. We've been
Right,
doing the review process with Vera for a year and a half now, and we've answered their questions, but I'm predicting they'll come back with a smaller, but still there'll be a third round of questions that we have to answer. Um,
right,
so we're not at the end of that process yet. But as I say, we want to accelerate. We've got our roadmap, so we're moving forwards, and we're going to create what we call carbon bonds. Um,
right.
okay, so climate change mitigation projects face a funding gap. You've got to get the funding to set up the project in the first place, which can be very slow between starting the project and
Yeah.
generating the first carbon credits and then selling those credits. Because you don't just have to generate them, you have to find someone to buy them from you. Also, on a yearly basis, it can still be 18 months between generating the carbon credit and selling them. So that's a big funding gap, and lots of projects, particularly startup projects, really feel the pain of that cash flow. Um,
So you
the
facing a lot of hurdles in terms of, also, is it regulatory hurdles you're facing, and this is what Vera's also challenging with you?
well, what Vera have challenged with other tokenization schemes, we avoid, because what we're going to do is we're going to issue these carbon bonds, which are going to be for future carbon credits. So these
Right,
aren't yet in Vera's ecosystem. So Vera won't be um, trying to shut us down because these aren't instruments that they're concerned with. They're not carbon credits that sit on their registry.
right,
So we're not impinging on the integrity of their database. So
right,
what we're going to do is we're going to contact the projects, onboard them, then we're going to give them the option of issuing their future carbon credits as tokens. Okay, they'd
yeah,
be NFTs. So each individual token would be linked to a very specific carbon credit that the project will generate.
right.
Um, so you can then buy that NFT if you wanted that future carbon credit to offset your
The
carbon
gas,
footprint,
right.
or you could sell it to another
Hmm.
party, or we're going to have a generic carbon token. We're going to have an asset pool of those carbon credit NFTs,
Right,
and then we're going to wrap them into a generic token.
right.
And you could trade that
You
generic token, and you can also unwrap back into, you can select from the NFT pool. So
so it's
yeah,
interesting what you're trying to do, and it's quite, I would say, in this early on days or this stages right now, it's very complex as well, I would say. especially with regulation and where you're going with, trying to be compliant. Let's break that down into a question then. Is that something where carbon reduction initiative are going to try and go to and try to resolve that issue? Yeah.
Yeah, we are. I mean, if you look at currently, there's two aspects here. I mean, one, the big buyers of carbon credits at the moment are large global companies who want to offset their carbon footprint. And in 2021, over 2,000 of these companies have made kind of commitments towards net zero by a target year, often 2030, sometimes 2050, depending on how fast they feel they can go. Um, these large corporates do face problems in going to the market to buy their carbon credits there.
Right.
Often carbon credits are sold through intermediaries, and it
Right.
can be very hard to know the quality of the carbon credits that you're buying. Um, some people are trying to solve this through kind of starting to have ratings, almost
Hmm.
like you would for bonds in the financial market or something, but for carbon credits. Um, so, we'd be part of that process while by putting in kind of practices to allow those corporates to see more about the project, have better information, have a direct relationship with that project.
Right.
So you're kind of disintermediating it. You're getting rid of the intermediary, and both sides gain from that. There's a lot more price transparency. You've got a personal relationship with the people you're buying your carbon credits from. You know what the project is. You know where it's based. You know how many carbon
Yeah.
credits it produces. All that kind of thing.
No,
That's a big bonus.
none of this is obviously advice to go ahead and buy these tokens. This is just purely just sharing Mark's views and Mark's ideas about carbon reduction initiatives. So just take this as a sort of a learning interview and learn all about it. And this is not advice to get these tokens or what sort or whatnot. But it looks like to me that there's a very big ecosystem growing in this industry, and I feel like it's looks like there's going to be billions and billions poured into this industry quite soon. Would you agree?
Well, the timing is very exciting. The
It
industry is
is.
expanding already. 2022 will probably have double the carbon credits issued of 2021, and they expect the market to scale 15 times by 2030.
I
And
heard.
that doesn't even get us towards you know keeping global warming at 1.5 degrees C.
So, Mark, how
We
can
need to
you?
go further faster.
Yeah, we do, and it looks like these things are accelerating. So let's go on to the next question, Mark. Is how are you now best positioned in this industry? If you can drill it down to our audience about carbon reduction initiative, where are you standing now?
So where we're standing now is we're applying to accelerators, and we're beginning to speak to all of the industry participants about tokenization.
Yeah.
Um, we recently made a submission to Vera on tokenization, um, and we're beginning to talk to the individual projects and onboard them to our scheme. Um, Obviously there's going to have to be quite a lot of development work, which will happen during 2023.
Yeah.
Um, you know,
So,
Manually you can create these things, but you need a full system in place to
correct.
automatically handle all the trades and the smart contracts. Um,
Are we
so
going in that direction? Are we going towards carbon, more sort of this green incentive, or do you think, the blockchains of Ethereum and Solana and, you know, there's a bit of a clash going on. It seems which one is going to lead, it seems. Yeah.
Well, it is. I mean, it's a very positive step that so many
Right.
blockchains are looking at their energy consumption. And,
Yes.
obviously, Ethereum's a huge step moving across.
Yeah, because they had their sharding and obviously, they cut gas fees down by almost 90%, it seems. Yeah.
Yeah, and massively reduce their energy consumption too, which is great for the
Yeah,
world as a whole. And
it
there's
is.
always been blockchains that were very, very efficient. The
Yeah.
difficulty is is getting the level of efficiency with the highest levels of decentralization, which is what the Bitcoin maximalists will argue. They'll argue that
Yeah.
there's no replacement for the decentralization of Bitcoin because it's more decentralized than
Right.
all of the other options that have lower energy consumption. The decentralization to an extent is the function of the energy consumption. It's what secures Bitcoin as a network.
So
So
what's the
that's their
roadmap?
argument.
So what's the roadmap
Well,
for carbon reduction initiative?
our roadmap, I'll come back to Bitcoin later, but our roadmap is to we're going to continue in our methodology process with
Okay.
Bera, where we're near the end of that. We're going to create these carbon bonds. I think we'll have a pilot project up and running with our first kind of project issuing carbon bonds by the end of this year.
Okay.
We've already had some great conversations with projects, and they're very interested in what we're doing. We need obviously to raise some funding to scale this. We're not intending to have a token sale. We're intending to approach specific funders.
Okay.
So this isn't a pitch for your cash at all.
No,
This is an educational interview. Um, um,
it's interesting. So you seem still excited, it seems, but there's a lot of groundwork that needs to be done from your end.
no, absolutely. And we're working all that at the moment.
Okay. All right. All right. The next question is what's your end goal for the business plan then? How can you tell my audience, as the founder of Carbon Reduction Initiative, what's your end goal for this?
the end goal, obviously, we're
They're
producing
good
carbon bonds.
questions. I'm throwing it at you, Mark, but
Yeah. No. Obviously, we're producing carbon bonds at the moment, but that scheme that we're producing also works perfectly well for tokenization of actual carbon credits. And that's the end goal, to create a blockchain mediated marketplace for carbon credits, a market that will need to scale vastly over the next 10 years and, in future. But
yeah,
more than that, it's to kind of disintermediate the
change the
market.
planet in some
Yeah,
sense.
change the planet, but
Right.
give people that personal relationship, be transparent, better price discovery, all the things that blockchain can bring to this marketplace.
And
That's where we're heading.
I'm sure my audience would also agree to the fact that we're turning more to this sort of greener incentive, and we're starting to challenge that more and more over time. So it's quite interesting where your project, aligns with that in total. Yeah,
And I think, if there's one thing that the blockchain community has shown in the past is that they are very environmentally conscious, largely.
it is. Yeah.
Where there's been projects that were environmentally conscious,
Well,
there's
I'd say
been,
the regulators are as well to some extent.
oh yeah, there's lots of specific regulation coming in um,
Yeah,
around sustainability,
yeah,
particularly for European banks and
yeah.
things. Everyone's going to have to report on that. That's going to channel money into the space to some extent, and away from polluting industries. So it's a great growth opportunity.
It is
This
indeed.
industry, and the planet needs it. You
And the
know,
planet does need it.
it's
Yeah.
not going to happen. It's not going to happen without anyone doing it, which is why we're trying to create a system and
Right.
a project that kind of directs money to the carbon credit project so they can scale further faster.
Yeah.
So they can overcome those initial barriers, get their projects going, or accelerate if they've already got their project up and running. Maybe they can roll out faster.
Amazing.
That's what we're doing. That's our mission to kind of.
And for all the right reasons as well, which is environmentally friendly, helping the planet. And I think, to my audience, those who are tuning in, I hope you're with us. And Mark is obviously, sharing a lot of details about the follow-up interview, which we're doing now from what we spoke about last. So it to my audience, I think it is a very sort of a interesting subject, and I'm sure you have to go to the website. Definitely take a look at Carbon Reduction Initiative. We'll put the link in the post below when this gets posted, so people know about it. And do reach out to Mark for business matters and business inquiries. Mark, the final question is where are you now heading to now? As blockchain gets more and more powerful, we've seen the sharding with Ethereum. We've seen, more of this sort of green incentive. We're moving towards, low gas fees. People are now trying to win the prize and go for the gold medal. And, there's a lot of competition out there. Where are your objectives and principles with Carbon Reduction Initiative?
Um, I think it comes back to what's important for me in blockchain really is decentralization of power. I think that's the potential to be the biggest gain for the world.
Yes,
Um, not just in kind of a web sense, but people using blockchains to mediate real life things that they do every day, and to mediate new organizations or perhaps even kind of communities or countries or charter cities, and using the blockchains to enable new forms of governance in that kind of environment in the real world, used every day. Um, I think that's the ultimate power that blockchain will bring us. Um, they'll allow us to have those decentralized power structures as opposed to the companies we have nowadays, which are like um, almost dictatorships ruled by the board
yes.
downwards. Um, Companies that self-organize from the bottom up, and not just kind of necessarily DAOs that do things on the blockchain,
They tend
kind
to
of
win
in an
more.
intangible space,
Mm,
but real structures that allow people to come together, build something, maybe disperse after it, and everyone to get some of the value from what they added to that thing. Um, and
amazing.
then the second thing, of course, and DeFi showing us this is that disintermediation, getting rid of intermediates, the people that sit in the middle of markets and slow things down and take money for effectively putting buyers and sellers together. There's a lot of value gets lost there. So,
Yes.
the ability of blockchain to bring markets together and have buyers directly engage with sellers, giving greater transparency and better price discovery and all those things. I think in the long term, that those are going to be two very valuable things for blockchain, and that's what they can deliver to the world, and that's what we're trying to do in kind of the carbon credit space.
Okay, amazing. And it's good that you became transparent, and we need that transparency and clarity in today's world, especially with what Carbon Reduction Initiative are doing, right?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's a real advantage of the blockchain. You know, we'll have a public chain. Everyone can see what's
Yeah,
moved where. Everyone will see what assets are in the pool. They'll
yeah,
be able to take their own view on what those assets are worth. So they'll be able to judge whether the generic token's overvalued or undervalued. And they can make choices to either wrap more NFTs into the generic token or unwrap into the
interesting.
NFTs. You know, it'll be a very flexible system that enables hopefully a whole new generation of kind of blockchain investors to get involved in the carbon markets.
We would love to hear more in many months' time about what you're doing, Mark. And I just want to say, it's a great honor to interview you and obviously learn more about what the project is doing. Just knuckling it down, I'll probably ask you one final question, and that is, where are your partners, and who's currently, in the terms of business? Can you break that down? Who your business partners are, and so forth? Yeah.
Um, there's several people that we're talking to, but we've not signed those deals yet.
Okay.
Uh, and I wouldn't want to kind of discuss things without first
But is
talking
it
to them.
accelerating in that
Oh
sense? Are
yeah,
you
absolutely. Um,
right?
as I say, we've had discussions with quite a lot of projects. We'd hope to have a pilot project up and running by Christmas. So, have our first NFTs for an actual project minted, representing their future carbon credits. We've done a lot of the kind of work in the background of calculations and working out how it all works. But as I say, there is a lot of programming to come, and a lot of work to come over 2023 to get this all up and running.
So you're talking to people as we are now in terms of trying to make those good deals happen in that sense.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's a very interesting time because the timing is so excellent. There's several people doing things that we particularly like for our ecosystem,
Right.
and they just started doing them. So, the
Could be
timing
better
couldn't seem to be
timing.
better. There's people popping up that we could just slot into to what we're
Okay.
doing, and
Seems
it's
positive.
just wonderful. Sometimes the universe provides for you.
All right, there you go. Thank you, Mark, for your time and to learn all about well, not to learn, but also to follow up about what Carbon Reduction Initiative are doing. I hope my audience found this an educational interview to learn more about it. If you do want to reach Mark for business inquiries, then we will leave his details in the comment section below. And just to all my audience, this is an interview about Carbon Reduction Initiative, the follow-up that we discussed, and we hope to hear many more positive news in the next few months, Mark.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks very much for
Thank you,
inviting
Mark.
me on again, Naz. It's always a pleasure. There's some very short videos on our website that people might like, 1 to 2 minutes, explaining different aspects of carbon markets and all that kind of thing. So
All right.
they're great.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.